xuan is not the best sustained character in the game anymore. Screw what Pride1 says, they are wrong on this. She is not the first, she is not the second, she's probably the third best sustainer in the game, which is not bad by any means, but she does have a lot of caveats now that the game is advanced. We're in version 2.0 now. There are a lot more things that stand in her way and actually just kind of wreck her whole existence. And being me using xuan since she has come out, I still stand by the takes that I made in that first do not summon for xuan video. That's why today's video we'll be talking about every single negative with xuan, going from the levels of late game player to mid game player to early game player, talking about the free to play players as well in between all of this. So guys, let's just go ahead and hop into the late game players now. Guys, if you are a late game player, meaning you have played the game more than 6 months, you are probably beating all of the content in the game right now. If you've been playing this game for over 6 months and you're not able to beat Mach 12, I'm not saying 3-star it. If you're not able to beat Mach 12, then there is a serious issue, guys, and xuan, trust me, will not fix that problem. But I'll get to those players in a second. I really here just want to talk about the normal late game player that's already able to beat the content in the game. If you're able to beat the content in the game already, you don't need xuan at all, right? You've probably already built up other sustain characters. Hell, you might even have 2 limited sustains already, maybe Hua Hua. You might have Adventurine as well. You might have Loach on the account. You do not need more than 2 limited sustains on your account. And honestly, your account's probably built up enough where the other buff she provides doesn't really help you out that much. Because really the 2 things that she's really good for in a team is the crit rate buff that she's able to provide to the whole team. And on top of that, she's able to provide CC prevention 1 time, not to mention damage dispersion and stuff like that. But if you are this late in the game, you're probably already beating all the content in the game as is. So there's absolutely really no reason for you to pull on xuan unless you really want her. Now let's go ahead and talk about the players that can't beat all the content in the game right now. They're late game players. You're TL70 right now. You're still struggling with the content in the game, and I need to pull xuan to help. Guys, if you're this late in the game, xuan's not going to help you out. I'll tell you why xuan's not going to help you out. First of all, she does damage dispersive. She is not a preventative sustain character, and she is a very small corrective sustain character, okay? What do I mean by this though? Being a preventative sustainer, meaning you put a shield on your allies and they don't take any damage. You prevent the damage from being done. An example of something being preventative in her kit is the CC prevention. If you were to get CC'd for 1 time, she will block that and nullify that. You will not even get touched with that CC. Now what she does is take the damage that your allies are taking and put that onto herself. Now she can correct her own HP by being able to heal herself back up, and she can slightly correct the team's HP by using her ultimate move, but let's be honest, that is not a big heal for the rest of the team. And now to make this come full circle for you guys, if you're struggling in the game right now, she will not help you because of the fact if your team is trash, if their defense is trash, if their HP is trash, you are still going to die. She is not going to prevent you from dying because she doesn't have any preventative damage like I mentioned before. She doesn't prevent damage from being done, and then her corrective healing is not that much. And if you're taking a lot of damage, first of all, you're killing her quicker, the team is taking a lot more damage, and on top of that, you're having to make sure her energy region's in check so she can keep popping your ult, so you can keep mildly healing the team. Not only that, to keep her HP up, because trust me, if there are dots on the team, which she doesn't prevent by the way, she is going to be taking even more damage because every time your teammate runs around, she takes a dot, they're done. They're done so. Now, if your DPS is in check and you're able to out DPS things, then sure, she might work for your account, right? Because the longer the battle goes on, the worse she gets. And this kind of leads us into that mid-game player mentality right now. Everything that I just mentioned applies to the mid-game player because these players in the late game that can't complete the content, you as a mid-game player are probably experiencing this as well, and you have even worse characters built up potentially, right? It depends on how big brain you are and you build your characters, right? But there's a higher chance of you not being able to survive. If your whole team does not have at least 3,000 HP, and on top of that, if they don't have a substantial amount of defense or just a decent amount of defense, you are going to die, especially if you're not able to out DPS things, which is usually the issue with mid-game players is DPS. It's usually a DPS check which stops you. You're getting higher up in MOC. You can't DPS things fast enough, meaning you're having to take more cycles to complete things, meaning xuan becomes less and less efficient. Now, I will say, as we go down this list here, she actually does bring some more benefits to you, like for example the crit buff. If you're a mid-game player and you're running into DPS checks and you can't out DPS things, and she is definitely not going to be bad for that. And I can't tell you the amount of times when I was in the mid-game and I just needed her crit buff. I don't really need it as much anymore, but the crit buff helped out so much. But on top of that, my team was just dying so much. And let's be honest, a lot of teams now really aren't taking use of crit rate. There's a lot of different variations of team going around, like break comps that maybe don't really need crit rate that much, or you're running running a dot team, which really doesn't need crit rate that much, which kind of throws that all out the window. xuan's more so for like a hyper carry team, so that's something else that we could talk about as well. And there's one massive thing here that I want to mention about late game players, early game players, mid game players, and finally free-to-play players with her. Golden Gears is not the move, all right? If you're a free-to-play player, you want as much value out of the character that you can possibly have. And I don't think she brings that value to you. You could run Hua Hua, you could run Aventurine, hell, you could even run Gepard in Golden Gears and clear it. You are not clearing Golden Gears with Fu Xuan. The moment you go up against an enemy that does AoE damage, you are dead. Your whole team is going to die. She is going to be insta-killed. That is a main downside with her ability. With her not having any preventative damage and with her not being able to proc corrective damage fast enough, she is not going to be able to sustain your team in these higher echelon game modes, I should say, because let's be honest, Golden Gears is not for the faint of heart. Golden Gears is not easy, okay, guys? As much as other content creators go through and clear it, and as much as you late game players might go through and clear it, Fu Xuan will not help you out at all unless you're just one-shotting everything with your team. Now, of course, if you're one-shotting everything with your team, you're an absolute Giga Chad. But with those mid-game players out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about those early and free-to-play players that this character could hurt the most and also be the most beneficial for, kind of. I've already made the point of not pulling for her because she can't beat Golden Gears. As a free-to-play player, you probably shouldn't pull on Fu Xuan. I think you're much better pulling for someone like a Locha that has enough corrective healing to keep your whole team alive in scenarios where you're getting blasted with damage all around, right? And even Gepard, right? I think Gepard also helps this case out as well. But then when we're talking about the other endgame modes like Pure Fiction and we're talking about Memory of Chaos, she's absolutely great for it. Now, like I said, the DPS checks and having your character's health in check still play a massive role, but she actually helps out early game players so much because of the fact she's able to give that HP buff. I guess this would also help out the mid game players as well. She does give an HP buff for the team. That crit rate buff is going to be mega juicy to get past those DPS checks. And on top of that, guys, she's kind of just taking damage away from the rest of the team, putting on herself. She's able to provide some level of DPS, not sub DPS, not even sub DPS, but better DPS than a Bailu would do, right? This is another reason why you might want to pull on her as a free-to-play or very new player to the game, but this is a major downside as well because when you get to the late game, if you don't plan on pulling another sustained character, she is really going to hinder your progress going forward. In the early game, she's going to be great. When you hit that mid game, you're gonna start to see the wear and tear there, and then when you hit the late game, you're definitely gonna start seeing more wear and tear there as well, because the higher you get up, the more damaging things you're getting, the better built your team's gonna have to be to play around her, which is just overall gonna be a worse experience, right? It's a team effort with her there, right? With someone like Aventurine, you just need to have him with a fuck ton of defense, throw him on the team. He's going to shield your whole team, okay? You're not going to die with Aventurine there. With Fu Xuan, it's a team effort. You get everyone there to buff. Now, these are kind of all the points that I wanted to make for the player brackets here. Now, let me give you my general thoughts on Fu Xuan. I think Fu Xuan is a great character, right? She's carried me from when I got her to now. Now, I don't use her anymore. Why don't you use her anymore, you two? I have Aventurine now. Aventurine carries me A-okay, perfect, good. He provides a sub level of DPS damage to me, which is much more beneficial than what she can provide. He also helps Anisha follow up characters a lot more. Her crit rate is nice, but nowadays characters, if they are meta, will have something that'll help them get crit rate, something that'll help them get crit damage so you can build these other stats into them. If you're using older characters in the game, then maybe she helps out more because you don't have those free stats that some of these new characters are giving to themselves. And just the team versatility that she can work on, right? Like I mentioned before, she can really only work in hyper carry scenarios now. Not to say that she can't sustain for those other teams, but you don't want your sustain characters now just to sustain. If you're looking at characters to just sustain, just run a Gepard. Like, if you have a Gepard in your account, he is going to provide very similar levels of sustainability that she can provide. And I have tested this. I use Gepard over Fu Xuan and MOC because, first of all, he provides a shield, which is preventative damage. That means I'm not taking any damage. Now, I will say his build himself is harder because I need him fast. I need energy regen on him so he can keep proccing your shield. You still take dot damage, but you are preventing the damage done to your allies, meaning if he's fast enough, then you can do that, right? You can boom, pop it off, meaning you can boom, pop it off, shield. No one's taking damage. Another thing with him is you obviously need more effect resistance as well. He doesn't prevent CC, so if he gets CC'd, you can't put a shield, then you're gonna die, right? I do think Gepard requires a similar playstyle than someone like Fu Xuan does. She plays more of a brain-dead playstyle, but this is not a character I think you should be wasting your Jades on, right? If we take away the sustainability, let's see what she really has, right? She has CC prevention, she has HP percentage, and she has crit rate buff. These are the only three things that she really has over Gepard, and on top of this, she's not really giving preventative damage, so I would argue to say that Gepard over here can actually help out a lot more, and on top of that, he does freeze the enemy as well, so yeah, you can, that's technically counts as sustain, so those are the points that I want to make here, right, guys? She is not the best in the game. I'm not going to say that she's bad, right? I'm not going to say that she hasn't carried me through the game, but as things progress through the game, she is becoming less and less needed. I don't think we should be pulling for a character that's getting thrown down more and more into the dumpsters, right? The enemy types we have now are playing more towards the niches, which she doesn't have. Gepard's really helpful because he has a shield which can block some of the monkey's attacks and stuff like that as well. For me, guys, I do think she's losing value quite a bit more than some of the other sustains in the game, and that's why I think you probably shouldn't pull on her. Now, at the end of the day, do what you want to do. Pull for who you want to pull for. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. She is not trash. She is just kind of good now. She's above mid, and I love her. So, bye guys. See you later. Have a good one. And subscribe too. Bye.